Sheet Metal Training Step 5.1, a walkthrough of the round pressure files. Go to the Setup menu from the main menu and click on the Round Pressure File tab at the top of the screen. You can then select any of the pressure files on the list just as you did with the rectangular and hit the Edit button down at the bottom to open that pressure file. All the same rules apply to the round pressure file as they did to the rectangular pressure files. The name of the pressure file is always listed up at the top in the title bar, and no matter what material type or pressure class you're in, the front end or the main menu to this pressure file will always look the same. Along the left-hand side you have the setup buttons, labor rates, reinforcements, hangers, materials, joint connectors, seams, wrap liner options, general options, and notes. They all follow the same path as they did in the rectangular pressure file, with some exceptions, such as, let's go to the joints page. The joints page is set up based on diameter. You can see the smallest diameter is 3 all the way up to 80 and greater. The fitting joint, you're just going to put in the code of the joint connection that you wish to use for the fitting type. This one is set to default to 22. If we look at the bottom right, we can see that is a no joint connector. Pipe joint, however, is set to a number 1. We look at the codes over to the right and we can see that is the couplers, the galvanized couplers. Long seam pipe is set to 22, as in a 2-inch pressure class. We would not use a rolled and welded long seam pipe, so therefore we're setting it to use no joint connector. Fitting sealant, we can see, is set to use a number 1, which is duct sealer, and same thing with the pipe sealant. The next section here is dealing with the gauges. So we've got the diameter 3 through 80 or greater, and we've got the pipe default gauge. We've also got the long seam pipe gauge and the fitting gauge right next to it. The next few columns deal with the length of the pipe and the scrap factors that you wish to use. We can see that spiral pipe is defaulting to 10-inch standard length all the way down through 50 inches in diameter. Then we jump to a 5-foot standard length. So from 3 to 50, spiral pipe will default to a 10-foot standard length. Some companies will set this to 20, others will set it to 12. It probably depends on your shipping and storage capabilities. Scrap factors for pipe, long seam pipe, and fitting scrap factors are all listed after that. Let's go back to menu, and we'll look at the seams page. And you can see the seams page is very similar. Going off of the diameter of the item, and we're looking at the long seam pipe seams, the fitting seam, and the gore seam. And you're basically just going to put in what you want your default code to be, and then check the box for your allowable alternates. The hangers is set up per diameter as well. Put in the code that you wish to use, check your allowable alternates. Let's go back to menu. We will now briefly look at all of the items on the right and their individual labor and cost tables. We will go through these items more thoroughly when we get into step 6, which is going to be a labor adjustment walkthrough. Let's click on the spiral pipe. Once the spiral pipe table comes up, we can see that just as in the rectangular file, there's a fabrication column, an installation column, an other labor, and a cost column. If you were purchasing your spiral pipe, you would set this cost column with your price per foot for your spiral pipe and zero out the fabrication labor. If we go to an elbow, we can see that the labor is set up just the same: fabrication, install, and other. Remember that the labor that's in the pressure file is only the labor to manufacture the item. So this labor that's in here does not include the time to actually weld the gourds together. This labor does not include the time to put the joint connector, if it would be AccuFlange or spiral mate, on the end of the item. This is only the labor to manufacture the parts or the pieces for this item. Same thing with the spiral pipe. This is the labor for the spiral machine to run the pipe off. If we look down at the bottom, we can see that none of the T's and crosses that are available in the takeoff screen are listed. However, all of their parts are. We can see that there is a straight body, a reducing body, as well as all of the different types of tabs. All of these individual components will be added up together to make a whole when you bring in the takeoff screen. So a 24-inch round body with a 24 to 18 reducer would use the 24-inch line for its fabrication labor to make the body, would use the reducer 18-inch line to make the reducer, and with a tap coming off the top of 12 inches round would also use this labor to fabricate all of the parts. The takeoff screen would then add them all up together to give you a total fabrication labor. All of the normal adjustments can be made by clicking on the column heading. Clicking on Fab, putting in your factor will allow you to reduce the column. Going to Menu, you have the Global Factor button, which will allow you to factor the labor for all of the items at one time. And Global Change will allow you to change all of the labor factors or cost columns to a single set number in one quick change. This would conclude the walkthrough for the round pressure file.